Hey folks, my name is Kevin and it's time for a little bit more knife nerdery. Today we have an unboxing of two knives that I've wanted to try for a really long time, and I happened to find them both for sale on secondary from the exact same guy. This is the mini chop smock we're going to use for opening. Now these were described both as being like new in box, which is kind of crazy because they're not particularly new knives. So I don't know how true that's going to be, of course, you never really know. But hopefully this is going to be an opportunity to see kind of what they would be like if I was able to get them back when they first came out. Okay, let's start with this one. This is the ShamWEri. This is the WE Knives version of the Shamwari knife from Bull Knives. Let's get this out and let's play with it. Okay, I have wanted to play with one of these for so freaking long. So the original knife, ShamWEri, is a custom knife by South African knife maker Gareth Bull. He works with his brother Jason Bull and his dad Mike Bull, and he designs like these really pretty minimal, sleek, functional knives, typically with a top flipper. He has a couple different varieties out there, but he's kind of like made a name for himself by making these top flipper knives. And that's why I've wanted to always check this out, is because this is supposed to be one of the best front top flippery kind of knives because of the general shape and everything like that and the action on his customs. But this, of course, is a production version that he made with WE Knives, and hence it being called the ShamWEri by some people, including myself. Ooh, look how beautiful that is. And this really does look minty fresh. Blade centering is perfect. Let's see what this action is like. Ooh, it's not what I was expecting. Ooh, this is maybe a little bit tight. Yeah, this is a little bit dry and tight, and I don't really understand. Okay, I'm getting it. I'm not used to this very short little tab yet. Okay. Yeah, this definitely wants some lube. You can feel that this is pretty in there. But now that I understand the geometry of that, ooh, even without a lot of lube, this definitely falls very nicely. Okay, I think I just needed to get that. I find that with almost all front or top flippers, they tend to have slightly different geometry than each other, and I find that no two ones flip exactly the same way. So, for example, let me grab literally any other one. This is the Boost Mini Arrow, and it just comes out so much further that it's a very different kind of effortless, because it's all based on the angle here. You have leverage. So this is based on leverage and not traction. And then, for example, this is more of a top flippery style. This is the Pena Knives X Series Zulu. And so with this, it's all based on traction. You're kind of pushing down and dragging over. With this guy, it's kind of a little bit cross between the two. It's relying on traction, but also a little bit on leverage. Okay, yeah. Ooh, this is nice. Okay. Nope, still messing it up every now and then. Wow. I just need to get the hang of this. I wonder how much of that has to do with lock bar. Is this a lock bar tension knife? Kinda, yeah. So let's see, how much does the detent ball engage? Like basically all the way. I suspect that that's what's going on here. I suspect that I'm failing this because I'm not used to how to put my hand on it in a way that doesn't put any tension on that lock bar. Because, yeah, if I take my finger off... Okay, they do an over travel stop in a really interesting way, where they have a really large pivot collar here, and that acts as the over travel. It's not unique, they're not the only ones that do that, but it's one of the first folks that did this, and it's definitely an iconic part of this knife design with this big blue collar there. How's this feel in my hand? I actually haven't held that yet. Ooh. Okay, so the Shamwari is available in a couple of different sizes, and the production version is done in a 3-inch blade length. And this, yeah, that fits my hand basically exactly how I'd want. I'm also noticing right off the bat that, look at that, this is a crowned spine. That feels really, really nice. When it comes down to these swedges right here, it's still crowned just that tiny little bit. Comes to a pretty fine tip. Wow, yeah, that's pretty fine. I think this is going to be a good slicer. Feels pretty thin behind the edge. Is that a hollow grind? Looks like a hollow grind to me. And WE does pretty darn good hollow grinds. I'm not sure how much I trust this falling to my finger yet. Ooh. I still need to figure out how to hold this in my hand that doesn't put lock bar tension on, because yeah, this opens super easy if I don't have lock bar tension, and definitely locks up. That's what I'm definitely doing wrong, is putting my finger right there when I'm trying to flip it. Otherwise, wow, that's really good. This still feels very sharp. So yeah, this really might have just sat in its box the whole time. There is curvature on this dimension, and so it has this really pleasant roundness, fullness in your hand, and this crown spine, like I said, feels really, really nice. This jimping that is used for the opening, I find it kind of a little bit odd, because you're really only going to be putting pressure on this top part. And so why is there jimping down here? Like, it doesn't really need it, I don't think. I don't know how you would put pressure on it down there in a way that would work. And then once it's open, you know, you're not going to... Actually, no, you know what? Never mind. I was about to say, you know, you're not going to put jimping pressure on your thumb down here, but the reality is, if you have it really canted forward in your hand to get the tip down further, so it's more kind of in line with your arm, which is, I guess what you would have if you're kind of piercing into a surface, like if you're trying to puncture into a cardboard box and then push down through, you might have that kind of grip. I tend to have the knife canted slightly further upward, almost not like in a full hammer grip, but like somewhere between those two. And so when I hold this in my most natural position, my thumb is going past this jimping and landing on this spine here, which is crowned and feels really, really nice in my thumb, but is not adding traction. Ooh, this feels nice. And this does indeed, even without any real lube, because you can hear the way that's dry. How is lockup? I didn't even finish that sentence. It does indeed fall to my finger really, really easily. Okay. This is pretty freaking incredible. I will say that it's a knife that you can't open other than that. And so, like, I can't get enough of a pinch right here to pull this out easily. Like, it's actually pretty difficult to pop that detent based on this little bit of grip all the way up here where you don't have any leverage. You want to pull down there. And so if you're not, I mean, I don't know why you would ever buy this knife if you're not into flipping. Wow, I'm still messing this up a lot. I keep putting my finger there. I don't know why you buy this knife if you're not into front flipping, because it's obviously a front flipper knife, but it's basically only a front flipper knife. I really like this finish a lot. I think this is just really beautiful. Okay, time to move on, because the next one we have is also pretty darn interesting to me. Made in USA. There we are. This is a Millit Knives Torrent by TJ Schwarz. Now, this is a production knife made by Millet here in the United States, made in USA. And it's worth noting that TJ Schwarz is a designer that has worked with both Millet and CRKT on multiple different knives. On both the, I think it's called an Overland, and with this Torrent, there's a version from Millet, which is like a really high-end production version from a small company. And then there's also a cheaper version made by CRKT, like way cheaper. So the Millit Torrent also is known as the Thero from when the CRKT version. But this one here is an odd one. This is like an interesting, unique piece, literally unique piece, in the Millit Torrent's history. There's only 10 of these in existence as far as I understand. And what's going on here is that this marks the transition point between the V2 and the V3 of this knife. And so this has a V3 back, which is Zerk blasted, but a V2 front, which is the kind that have this overlay. And so as a result, it's kind of a Frankenstein. And you can see that it has asymmetric siding here, and this looks fundamentally different on one side versus the other. It also is slightly thicker on this side than it is on this one. But look at this overlay. Whew. They call this a smooth overlay. Right there, smooth overlay. Because the earlier versions in the V1 and some in the V2 have the cutout overlay where there is like milling, making these little pocket windows so you can see the material underneath through the overlay. And so through that method, he's able to put in fancy, swirly, Damascus and Timascus type stuff, and then have it show through a tie top. But this one is what really drew me, because look at this beautiful swooping lines there. And on the back is just plain, but you'll see that it has, even on the V3 version, it has this specific kind of, I don't remember what you call this, but a chamfer that is rounded. There's a word for that. I'll figure it out. And they do that same thing here, but just moved in. So you can see it's the same kind of, can I get that focus? The same kind of chamfer right here as it is right there, just further out. This is half as thick as this. Okay, let me open this up. Ooh, that's weak. Interesting. I was not expecting it to be that weak. It's meant more as a push button though. That's me trying to do as a light switch, and it's not really working for that. And that's me pulling on this jimping right there, which there is a jimp right there, so you can see I can pull it, and I can make it go, but it's not wanting to. So instead, I think I'm going to try and use this as a push button where you push on this tab, build up pressure as you're pushing kind of into the pivot, and then rotate that over. Nope, still not working great. There we go. This is not my favorite action right off the bat, but this knife I think is just really, really cool looking. And honestly, I don't know how much I intend to use the flipper tab period, because what I think I'd rather do is flick this knife. I've always really liked the shape and styling of this right here. It's, yeah, that works much easier. This is a light detent. I wonder if that's what's going on. We have relatively deep engagement though. You can see the detent ball is sticking basically all the way in. So why is this light? Is the lock bar just light? Yeah, it's not a terribly strong lock bar. I think that's what's going on. So then does this fall closed? Pretty easily. This is a bit of an oddball. You'll see that this cutout is interesting in that it has this middle part right there, and that this general shape here is mirrored here on the pocket clip. Now, the one thing I really don't like about this knife, and never have, is the pocket clips really quite shallow carry. It's like aggressively shallow. And I actually emailed Millet and asked if they would be interested in moving this up higher. I did a little Photoshop job, or a really crappy version, showing what it would look like if they were to move this up earlier, or higher up. I basically repositioned this body screw down and then move this as is directly up. And there's way better ways they could do that, but that'd be a pretty low effort way of doing it. And I think personally it would be an improvement, because it would move this pocket point all the way up to about there, which I think would just be better. But usually shallow carry knives feel good in your hand, And yeah, this pocket clip does feel good in my hand. Having it not back here means there's no hot spots, but the way that this works and kind of ramps down with these screws means I don't think you'd have bad hot spots, period. How does this fit in my hand? Yeah, this feels pretty good. I like the feel of this. That feels nice. You can kind of feel this ridge right here as an indexing point and kind of wrap your finger around it. This jimping is pretty effective, a little bit aggressive, but pretty effective. This version has a pretty heavy but uniform, just kind of darker colored stone wash. And what I've heard is that one of the differences is between V3, which this is technically a V3 blade, between V3 and V4 is that they have just a more aggressive grind, that this isn't a particularly thick, thin behind the edge grind. And yeah, just with my finger calipers, this feels like it could be thinner. And then when you look at this tip here, woof, yeah, there is a lot of meat back there. So I'm still probably going to hunt a V4 of these. They also did a version with internal skeletonization that they're called, I don't know, like the V4 lightweight or something like that. And so they've just been doing incremental improvements as they go, and that's cool to see. This is a internal stop pin, the kind that's traveling through a smile-shaped arc in the blade I'm seeing, because you can see the stop pin right there stays stationary as we move. I really like the way that this kind of travels through here. You can see that it cuts into the blade itself. This all lines up. That aesthetically is very pleasing. I've always wanted this knife, honestly, just in part because it's just such, I think, a really aesthetically good-looking knife. This is just, I think, a really good-looking knife. This backspacer back here has this interesting pattern here that I think kind of mirrors, yeah, definitely, there we go. It mirrors the jimping right there. You can see that the thickness of these and the thickness of these in this dimension is basically the same with the spacing, and it's just wider back here. This anodization job is really, really nice. It's a very vivid blue in person, and it's a very pretty blue. It's a low blue, looks to me like maybe 25 volt anodization. What else would I want to notice? Looks like it is a double tooled pivot, which means I assume it's free spinning. That's kind of disappointing, but we'll see. How easy it is. Sometimes those are easier than others. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I'd want to look at on this yet. I do personally think that the asymmetry of this is odd in a way that I initially found kind of almost off-putting. It looks wrong because knives almost always are symmetric. But honestly, the more I looked at it, the more it just seemed kind of interesting and cool to me. And the fact that this is a 1 of 10, just kind of, transition piece in the history of the Torrent means that it was really, really interesting to pick up, and I'm glad I got to see it. Man, this action, the flipper action is surprisingly hard to make it go. It's really, really easy to fail. But if you do that kind of push buttony thing there, that's a lot easier and you can get a good snap. I'm just genuinely really surprised that it's so easy to fail in this way. And I wonder if I just put more pressure on the lock bar. Don't love that. Okay, well, I will do full reviews on both of these because these are both really interesting knives to me, and I will let you guys know if I get any progress on making this better. That's interesting in and of itself. This steel lock bar insert comes all the way back to there. It's much more common for them just to be like a little tiny thing, but this is coming all the way back there and attaching with a third screw on the inside. I wonder why. I don't know. It also doesn't appear to be an over travel stop. I really assumed it would be. So this seems to be just a lock bar insert and does not seem to be preventing this from bending past this point. I'm being careful not to like spring this in any way, but you can see I am able to push it past the spine. That's surprising to me. I forgot to mention one last thing. This particular version is in Carpenter's CTS 204P blade steel, and they've switched the blade steel around as they've gone, but this one's in 204P, and 204P is interesting. I like the way that you can read it in both positions there, but 204P is interesting because it is Carpenter's version of M390 and 20CV. It's basically the exact same steel, but it's nowhere near as common, and given that those two are kind of ubiquitous at this point, it's genuinely surprising that you don't see 204P more often, because it is, like I said, chemically speaking at least, effectively the exact same steel. There's an interesting... Yeah, that is really interesting. So this knife has a zero blade play, but it has a very particular kind of hollow echo when I click it. When I flick this open, I can literally feel it echoing, and I'm not sure what is doing that. Oh, part of it I think is this. This clip is not making contact. Like it's hovering just above. And so I think that's what's going on. I think because the way that I'm flicking this, how far up this is, means my hand is not actually contacting this, and this can still vibrate. And so when I flick this, I feel like a vibration right here. Interesting, interesting, interesting. I noticed when looking in here that there is some like lint of some kind and just dust crud right in here that was packed up right against this ball. And as a result, that was blocking light when this was closed and made it look like it was sitting fully flush. But the reality is this is not sitting fully flush. And you can see that there's a gap there, that the detent ball is not sitting in as deep as I thought it was. And I suspect that is the actual reason why we have a relatively, well, actually not even relatively, a very light detent. But still, Okay, I'll stop. And, yeah. See if I can get this. There we are. Cool. Thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll catch you next time. Have a nice day.